Hello poker lovers, this is Betamoo, and today we'll explore how to play aces and kings on wet dynamic boards. We'll cover preflop along with post-flop, up until the river. Backed by computer analysis, also known as GTO. These two hands, despite having the highest expected value preflop, a mistake post-flop can end up costing people a lot. This is because of the tendencies to hold on to them, no matter what develops on the board. Preflop is the easiest to play. In all positions, you have to raise, 3-bet, at least once before you start considering trapping. Trapping happens at a low frequencies as we are always happy to go all in with these two hands preflop, even in deep stack situations. If the opponent ends up folding, it is free money. Some people try to be tricky and don't 3-bet preflop, but they are really just giving up some value and giving a chance for the opponents to hit the nuts for cheap. You might also think, my hand would be face up. The opponent will always know I 3-bet or 4-bet only with aces and kings. To counter this, we have to include bluffs in our range as well. Our 3-bet bluffs would come from many suited connectors, while our 4-bet bluffs come from the suited ace portion. Ace-king and some ace-queen offsuit being a semi-bluff, and ace-5 suited is a complete bluff. Note that, ace-5 suited is better than other ace-x combos because of its will draw outs, plus flush draw when the opponent ends up calling. Bluffing ace-5 is better than bluffing ace-4, ace-3, or ace-2, because we want to increase the likelihood that the opponent has those weak pairs, 4-4 to 2-2, that are more likely to fold, if they do. This is a win as these hands still have 50% equity preflop against our ace-x bluff. The trapping happens if the opponent was the 3-better themselves, with aces more often than kings, as kings need protection as it will have a harder time to play them when an ace hits the board. We prefer trapping more when in position than out of position, as you will be the last to act. If the opponent is the one who 3-bet the flop and we trap, they are likely to fire another bullet on the flop as first to act, and we get a chance to fire back with a raise or an all-in. If we were the first to act and trap, the opponent can easily fold a lot of the flops that didn't connect with their range and we miss on getting value, while also taking more risk. If the flop is dry, it is often straightforward. By dry we mean there are no flush or flush draws. By disconnected we mean, there are no straight draws or a possibility of two pairs. In these cases you usually can bet the 3 streets for value, and sometimes check back as a trap. Therefore, we will focus more on hard situations to navigate. Let's consider the case. We open raise from a late position. Button 3 bets. We 4-bet and button calls. We are out of position, which increases the EV of the opponent and puts them in an easier spot. The flops comes king of hearts, jack of hearts, 10 of hearts. This is a heavily dynamic board full with straight and flush draws. This board is better for our opponent range, which has a lot of suited hands than us, and also more straights. That's because we 4-bet fewer hand combos while the button is supposed to call more suited combos. Also, given that we rarely 4-bet ace-queen suited, we have less straights. Adding to the fact that we are out of position doesn't make it any better. Thus we have to be very selective on which hands we want to see bet. 30% of the time we will use half pot size for stronger hands, and check 70% of the time. For ace-ace without a heart, and king-king specifically, both are not the nuts anymore. For example, ace-ace equity degrades to become 50% against a hand with a heart in it, and much less when the flush is combined with straight draws. Add to that there are plenty of two pairs that we are behind too. And having trips here with king-king is still not dominant enough. For these reasons, we check both ace-ace with or without hearts, along with king-king 60% of the time. Checking ace-ace with a heart makes sense here. If the opponent has a flush already, we still have some equity but prefer to see more cards. If they have a flush draw we dominate them and we can make much more money if they hit a lower flush. If they have a pair with the board or a pocket pair they can bet into us for protection or as a bluff. If they have two pairs we are behind. In most other hands that we dominate, betting will make them easily fold. Thus we bet only a portion of the time in hopes to get some value from pairs, and from hands that want to see one more card, such as a straight draw with no flush. We could also fold some weaker draws. Surprisingly, if the opponent raises all in, we still call with every the ace-ace and king-king. In that case they are basically bluff catchers we use to defend our range with. If we bet and the turn comes a brick, say 7 of clubs, our range gets so small that an ace-ace without a heart becomes one of our few remaining bluffs. Given the amount of money in the pot already, around 100 big blinds, and our remaining stack, around half pot, we have only one size here, all in. We do this with every ace-ace without a heart 100% of the time. We are hoping to fold weak flushes and straight draws that didn't hit yet. If we have ace-ace with hearts, we still have plenty of equity. We can check 65% of the time to protect our checking range and allow the opponent to bluff. If the opponent then goes all in, ace-ace with hearts becomes an excellent bluff catcher, with plenty of outs when behind. Our trip kings, and trip jacks for that matter, will also want to go all in here, as they still have 30% equity, and given the stack-to-pot ratio we are still getting the right price to chase a full house. Again, we are hoping to get weak flushes, and weak straights to fold as well. If the turn, however, goes check-check, we can play the river with ace-ace of hearts as follows. Brick river, we slow down. We are ahead of some hands, so our hands still have showdown value. And if we bet, we mostly get called by hands we are behind too. Otherwise, if we complete the flush on the river, all options become playable. We want to check sometime to trap. We can bet 1/3 pot to induce a bluff, or we can go all in for value. The opponent range will be full of flushes and they will have to call some of them. Back to the flop, if it instead goes check-check, we have two cases. On a brick turn, we can start getting value and add protection from weaker hands and draws, by delayed c-bet with aces and kings with a 1/4 pot sizing. We are planning to check most rivers, bricks or not, and switch to bluff-catching mode when we don't have the nuts. On a heart turn, we have to slow down with aces without a heart. Flushes are very likely now. If the opponent doesn't have a flush we are likely ahead and don't need to risk more money, and if they do have a flush we are likely dead behind. In order to protect our turn checking range, we can slow down with the nut flush and some trip kings as well. So we check 30% of the time. When we check and the opponent blasts the turn, and similarly if they blast the river, we are happy to bluff catch with trip kings and aces with a heart, and we fold aces without a heart. I hope you found this overview of the optimal play helpful in adjusting your mindset to the changing strength of pocket aces and kings across various scenarios. This was Betamoo Poker. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next case studies.